So we just feel blessed to have him not only as a member of the board here, but also as our friend and our co-worker and our cohort here in the ministry. And without any more to do, I will turn it over to Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin. God bless you.
All right, buddy. I'm Kevin Barrelle. I'm the convicted felon that Tim Rupert talks about all the time. And I have been the blunt end of his jokes for 2 years now. And so when you speak, you try to prepare something, for your audience and stuff like that. And I cut out the first 10 minutes to roast Tim because don't raise your hand. I'm not going to call you out if you're communist or a felon or anything like that, like little Timmy Rupert did, okay? So, but if you're a felon and you win that gun, you can get the gun. I actually had offers on the gun before I even got out of here. So, whatever you do, do not tell Tim that you're a convicted felon. You become the blunt end of his jokes. No, we went on a men's retreat. How long ago was that?
It was
a few months ago.
Yeah.
It was a few months ago. We went and we had a good time, and we was riding down the road, and Corey Finn, he rode with me up there, and we're riding down the road and his phone rings, and he's got the absolute best thing for Tim. When Tim calls him, it says, "Little Timmy Rupert is calling. Little Timmy Rupert is calling." You can become a convicted felon like that. You know that you become the blunt end of somebody's jokes like that, right?
Accidents happen.
So, thank you for that laugh.
Man, I love it.
Anyways, I'm Kevin Barrelle. If you don't mind, can you put that up there? That's me. That is me in June or July of 2001. From the time I was 9 years old until the time I was 21, I was in and out of jail multiple times. I know you're thinking 9 years old, really? Yes, 9 years old. And that picture right there is me strung out on methamphetamines on my way to prison. I was 21 years old and on my way to prison for a 25-year, served 15, and a $350,000 fine. When I got sentenced, I told the judge I would not be back for trafficking methamphetamines. I'd be back for manufacturing methamphetamines because I can't afford to pay that fine. There's absolutely no way I'd be able to pay that fine. And December of 2006, I was released with a $25 check, and I had, which is now my wife, was my fiance then. I could not convince her to marry me while I was in prison for some reason. I don't know. I tried. Her dad wasn't having it either. So, anyways, I came home to her, living at my mom's house, and my family, that was all I had. We had friends. I had friends and all that stuff. So when you're out there in the streets and you're running stupid and acting a fool, everybody always tells you that they're going to be there for you. If you fall, they got you. Rico. Rico preached to me while I was in jail in Walton County. And I'll never, ever forget that. I was 18 years old. I still had a lot of dumb stuff to get out of my system. But how I got reintroduced to Rico, and I'll get back to my story. I seen Rico shaking his head, and I know he knows. My brother's got the same. We got similar backgrounds. But the prison I was released from, I was going back in to start preaching to the inmates and talking to the inmates. And my brother Rico was in there, and I was like, man, I know you. He was like, what? I was like, man, I know you, dude. You used to come to the Walton County Jail and preach to the inmates in there. And I was one of them. And he's like, man. And that's my brother right there. But anyways, this is the hardest part to talk about. While I was in prison, my little girl, I have a daughter, she's 22 years old. She'll be 22 this year, November. And while I was in prison, I got called to the front of the dorm or whatever, and I was told to go see the chaplain's office. Well, don't raise your hand. I'm not going to call you out, but if you've ever been to jail or prison, you know for a fact they don't care about your religion. They don't care about any of that. See, that's how you do that, Timmy. You don't call nobody out. So I get a phone call. I get called up there to the chaplain's office, and I go in. And there's a long line. There's these, it's just a long line of inmates, and we're standing there in the hallway, and they call me in, and this is in 2002, so I haven't even been in prison long. And he says, Mr. Barrelle, EF number 495121. I said, yes, sir, that's me. He said, I'm sorry to inform you, but your daughter has been killed. I'm sorry, your daughter's mother. What am I supposed to do, jump for joy? Wasn't my daughter, but her mother. A range of emotions rolled through and over me at that time. I can't even explain it because it was devastating. I call home, I talk to my mom. Mom says, yeah, it's true, My little girl was in the back seat of a 300ZX, and anybody that knows those cars, they're very small. My little girl was in the back seat of that car, and her mom was shot in the head at point blank range. And I went back to my cell. I sat on my bunk. And I had to do some soul searching. I was baptized and saved. I accepted the Lord as my Savior at a young age. And I knew who God was. I had a praying grandmother that still prays for me to this day. And I sat on the edge of my bunk and I thought to myself, my daughter is fixing to grow up without a mother. Not only is she fixing to grow up without a mother, but she's fixing to grow up without a father too. Because I'm in prison. And it's time for me to make a change. It's time for me to become the man I need to be for me, so I can become the man I need to be for my daughter. Because it's unfortunate if you do anything in life for anybody else first, when it comes to bettering yourself, somebody's going to let you down. You're going to get let down. It's 100%. And I thought that my family was going to get custody of my daughter. Matter of fact, I didn't even know that my daughter's mother even had extended family in other states. But in 6 months before I was released from prison, they terminated my rights as a parent. And I asked that judge, I said, what are you going to do? You going to take my next one? All I'm asking for is a chance. Yeah, give me a second, y'all. Oh, that's a hard one to talk about. So, there's a verse in the Bible that all I could think about was pray without ceasing. Pray without ceasing. Pray, 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 pray. We had a little intercession. They let me go back to my cell. I'm in there fighting for my daughter, I feel like I'm one of the world's best salesmen. I was losing my sales battle in this. Because I'm sitting there, all the odds are against me. I've been in the county jail, couldn't shave, I looked rough, handcuffed and shackled together. If I wanted to scratch my head, I had to pick my leg up. And I'm sitting up there telling them I could be a good father. It's a hard one to sell. They gave us intercession. I went back into the holding cell and I prayed and I prayed and I prayed. And we came back out and the judge made his decision and terminated my rights. So it was every opportunity that I needed to go back to the same lifestyle I was living. I talk about all this stuff in my book, y'all. And I could have went, because whenever I got when I first got the news about my daughter, I sat on my bunk and I pulled out every piece of paper that I had written down how to get out and manufacture methamphetamines. Just so happens that my cellmate is in prison for manufacturing methamphetamines. I was like, man, me and you can make a lot of money together. So he didn't know how to sell it, but he knew how to make it. And I took that stuff and I took it out piece by piece, ripped it up, threw it in the toilet and flushed it down the toilet. Two months prior to my release, I was sitting in my cell and I said, God, every time I go home, I'm home for 6 months, and I get locked back up. I go right back to jail. I go right back to jail. Go right back to jail. And y'all, I'm telling you, God spoke to me, right? 100% spoke to me in my prayer time. I said, I'm scared to go home. I don't want to go home. Almost to my 5-year mark, I knew that my parole date was coming up. And I said, I really don't want to go home. Because I've never been more free in my entire life than I have been behind these walls. I was free from addiction. Don't get me wrong, y'all. I'm telling you right now, prison's slap full of drugs. They're cheaper, and most of the time they're better. There's an array of drugs inside the prison system. It was a decision I had to make to stop. And I was praying, and God said, you've never prayed for the desire of drugs to be taken away from you. I said, hold that thought. In my prayer time, I said, God, please take the desire of drugs away from me. I don't want it. I don't need it. I'm not interested in it no more. February of next year will be 21 years I've been drug free. That's God's doing. That ain't my doing. I've never once looked for drugs. I've never once, since I've prayed that prayer, I haven't went looking for drugs. I haven't had the desire. Me and my brother Chris, we've sat in rooms with people doing drugs and telling them about Jesus and telling them about how much God loves them. And not once did I get the jitters. Not once did I think, oh man, it sure would be nice to do some of them drugs with them. Y'all, God's for real. God is for real. And so, I don't know, I have no idea what time I got up here, and I have no idea how much time I got left, but I got plenty to tell you. So, how long do I got, Tim?
You got about 10. Go ahead.
Okay, good. So, I came home, and some of them old people were showing up to my mom's house, because I went home to my mom's house with my fiance. Back to my salesmanship. I sold her. I sold her 100%, because I had $25 to my name when I was released, and I promised her that I was going to do absolutely every single thing I could to make sure she didn't have to struggle, she didn't have to worry, she didn't have nothing, absolutely nothing. And so, I love my wife. I wish she was here. But I came home to my mom's house, living in a bedroom that I grew up in with me and my wife. And I had no idea where I was going. I got to thinking about my wife. I had no idea where I was going with that story. I apologize. Anyways, so I came home and I was scared to death. Still scared. I was on an ankle monitor. I had 25 years of paperwork to do. And anybody that knows that's ever been in the prison system or on paperwork knows that that is an absolute trap and revolving door. My wife and I, in August of 2007, bought our first home. And moved in together, I had to write a letter. I had to write a letter to the mortgage company explaining why I didn't have any taxes paid or anything for the last 5 years, and explain why I was a changed man. Y'all, this is God, okay? I really need y'all to grasp the fact that this is God, because this is what this is I wrote a letter to the mortgage company telling them why I was a changed man. I haven't been out a year, no driver's license, obviously no vehicle. And my wife, that was working for $35,000 a year, we bought our first house. And y'all all know what happened in 2008, right? Like, the economy crashed, right? Well, not one time did we fall behind on our bills. I had no driver's license. Right before I was released, I said, God, I will absolutely dig in a dumpster before I go back to my old ways. I made a lot of promises to God, ate a lot of promises to God, and I broke every single one of them. The economy crashed, I lost my job, and I was your neighborhood scrap metal dealer. I was knocking on doors, picking up trash in people's yard, throwing it in the back of a truck and taking it to the scrap yard. Not ever once did we miss a house payment. Not once did any of our bills not get paid. I actually got my driver's license, paid my probation, like the whole 9 yards. And then one day, I'm head first into a dumpster, picking trash out of it, metal out of it, and one of my buddies is holding my feet. I'm talking about one of the big tall dumpsters out on the construction site. He's holding my feet, and I'm digging and pulling trash out of that, metal. Man, scoop me over, come on, scoop me over. Boom, 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 trash. Second time I ever heard from God. He said, you did it. You did it. And I busted out laughing. Head first in a dumpster with somebody holding my feet. My buddy said, I do not find any bit of this funny. Let's get this metal out of here and let's go. I said, man, get me out of this dumpster. He said, grab that. I said, get me out of this dumpster. I could cry. I actually kept a promise to God. I was digging in a dumpster to feed my family. I didn't go back to my old ways, which I knew how to do very well. And we have not, this is all God's grace, man. This has nothing to do with me. This is just me and God's relationship. That's all this is. That's God and my relationship. I'm 100%. And I haven't had to dig in another trash can. Thank God. Amen. The only reason why I'm fixing to tell you what I'm about to tell you is because I want you to know 100%, I don't care where you're at, the only reason I own a company. I'm not even going to say what. I own a company. It's a multi-million-dollar company. The only reason why I'm telling you that is because God did it. That's why. Because I didn't have but a $25 check in December of 2006 when I came home, raking people's leaves for $25 a day, whatever it took to provide and do for my family. Now, you got to be faithful with little first before you can be trusted with much. For those, it's biblical. It's 100% biblical. You have to be faithful with little first